Dzień dobry, witam bardzo serdecznie wszystkich Państwa zgromadzonych na sali notowań Giełdy Papierów Wartościowych w Warszawie, a także tych, którzy oglądają nas poprzez internet. Witam serdecznie na dzisiejszej uroczystości debiutu produktu czy instrumentu finansowego Exchange Traded Commodities. Jest to produkt, który jest bardzo nowy na naszej giełdzie, bo to nie jest nie tylko produkt, ale sama kategoria ETC jest kategorią nową i od dzisiaj będzie oferowana także na platformie Giełdy Warszawskiej. Pierwszy nasz produkt ETC oparty jest o fizyczne złoto, a więc kruszec, metal szlachetny, który jest bardzo lubiany przez Polaków. O tym opowiemy w dalszej części naszej uroczystości, a tymczasem w tym specjalnym dniu, bo jest to dla nas specjalny dzień, kiedy na parkiecie pojawia się zupełnie coś nowego, czego w historii do tej pory na Giełdzie Warszawskiej nie było. I w tym dniu chcemy powitać naszych gości, którzy są razem z nami i będą razem świętować tą uroczystość debiutu. Po pierwsze chciałam powitać panią Katarzynę Szwarc, która zaszczyciła nas swoją obecnością, reprezentuje Ministerstwo Finansów i jest pełnomocnikiem do wdrożenia strategii rozwoju rynku kapitałowego. Witamy bardzo serdecznie i dziękujemy, że znalazła Pani czas dla nas. Emitentem nowego instrumentu ETC jest HANetf, platforma europejska, która oferuje szerokie spektrum takich produktów, które są notowane na różnych giełdach europejskich. I razem z nami są dzisiaj przedstawiciele HANetf. I pozwolicie Państwo, że na chwileczkę przełączę się na inny język, na język angielski, tak żeby Panowie mogli ten kawałek mojej wypowiedzi dobrze zrozumieć. So I'm going to switch to English language, and I would like to welcome the representatives of HANetf. Just let me introduce Nick Binkowski, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of HANetf. We have also Andre Wojna, Director, Head of German-speaking regions, HANetf. I would like to thank you very much for your hard work, and first of all for choosing Warsaw Stock Exchange as the place for listing and trading this product. And also, please, also thank you to your team, because it was really hard work. And together with Warsaw Stock Exchange, with our team, I think that we spent a lot of time to make this launch happen. And we hope also to list more of interesting ETC, ETNs, ETFs from your offer also on our platform soon. Chciałam również bardzo serdecznie podziękować biuru maklerskiemu Santander, które jest animatorem tego produktu, a także oraz przede wszystkim naszym pracownikom Giełdy Papierów Wartościowych w Warszawie, którzy naprawdę bardzo ciężko pracowali po to, abyśmy przygotowali nasze regulacje do tego, żeby takie produkty mogły być u nas notowane, a także później razem tutaj z naszym emitentem pracowali nad tym, żebyśmy mogli dojść do tego dzisiejszego dnia debiutu. Także jeszcze raz bardzo serdecznie dziękuję wszystkim pracownikom giełdy, którzy byli zaangażowani w doprowadzenie do tego debiutu. Jako giełda od dawna, właściwie od samego początku dążymy do tego, aby nasi inwestorzy mieli jak najszerszą paletę interesujących instrumentów finansowych do wyboru, aby mogli dzięki temu tworzyć różne strategie inwestycyjne, aby z ekspozycją geograficzną, z dywersyfikacją tematyczną i aby te instrumenty były oparte o różne aktywa bazowe i właśnie w ten cel bardzo dobrze wpisuje się produkt ETC, który jest oparty na bardzo lubianym, tak jak już powiedziałam, złocie fizycznym, bardzo lubianym z punktu widzenia inwestycyjnego. ETC to są produkty, które już w tej chwili notowane są i obracane na innych giełdach i mają kilka bardzo dużych zalet. Po pierwsze, są to produkty z punktu widzenia inwestorów relatywnie proste. One są obracane na giełdach tak jak akcje, tak jak fundusze ETF. Można powiedzieć, że tutaj od strony funkcjonalnej są bardzo porównywalne właśnie do ETF-ów. Tak jak ETF-y mają charakter pasywny, czyli podążają za instrumentem bazowym, odwzorowują jego cenę. Natomiast dlaczego to jest nie ETF, a ETC? Otóż wynika to z regulacji europejskich, gdzie wszystkie fundusze UCIT, ETF-y będące funduszami UCIT z punktu widzenia regulacji europejskich, one mogą być oparte o koszyki akcji czy obligacji, o indeksy właśnie tych instrumentów. Natomiast jeżeli chodzi o towary, surowce, to takimi instrumentami, które mogą być o nie oparte, są właśnie Exchange Traded Commodities. Bardzo nas cieszy to, że ten debiut instrumentu ETC na fizyczne złoto, on wpisuje się w jeszcze jeden bardzo ważny trend, który jako giełda niezmiennie od samego początku promujemy i uważamy za kluczowy, a mianowicie tak zwane ESG, czy inaczej mówiąc ESG z języka polskiego, czyli zrównoważone, odpowiedzialne inwestowanie. W jakim kontekście wpisuje się właśnie w ESG? Otóż to złoto, które stanowi bazę dla naszego produktu, jest pozyskiwane w sposób odpowiedzialny z legalnych źródeł w regionach wolnych od konfliktu, a ponad 1/3 jego część to złoto ze zweryfikowanego recyklingu. Chciałabym zaznaczyć, że nasze plany jako giełdy są bardzo szerokie, więc będziemy rozmawiali z emitentem, z dzisiejszym emitentem, a także z innymi na temat tego, żeby poszerzać ofertę produktów ETC. Być może pojawią się również takie produkty z innej grupy ETN, Exchange Traded Notes, to zobaczymy w przyszłości. Natomiast w tej chwili chciałabym, abyśmy przeszli do tej części, w której Państwo zapoznamy bardziej z dziś debiutującym instrumentem, a uczyni to mój kolega z Giełdy Papierów Wartościowych w Warszawie, Marcin Opoka, którego bardzo serdecznie zapraszam tutaj na scenę do zabrania głosu.
Dzień dobry Państwu. Na Giełdzie Papierów Wartościowych od dłuższego czasu rozwijamy instrumenty inwestowania pasywnego i z tej perspektywy chciałbym Państwu dzisiaj o nowych produktach opowiedzieć. Ostatnie lata to skokowy wzrost rozwoju inwestowania pasywnego, a co za tym idzie też produktów i instrumentów, które temu służą. 2019 rok był ciekawym rokiem na rynku amerykańskim, gdzie po raz pierwszy aktywa pod zarządzaniem w pasywnych funduszach akcyjnych przekroczyły wartość ich aktywnych odpowiedników, a ten trend do tej pory się nie odwrócił i nic nie wskazuje na to, by tak się stało. Podobnie w Europie ostatnie półrocze pokazuje stabilne napływy do funduszy pasywnych, podczas gdy ich aktywne odpowiedniki, tradycyjne fundusze radzą sobie nieco gorzej. Pasywne inwestowanie tradycyjnie łączymy z funduszami inwestycyjnymi notowanymi na giełdzie, a raczej tytułami uczestnictwa w tych funduszach, czyli z ETF-ami. No i w tym roku, zapewne nieprzypadkowo, świętowaliśmy 30-lecie jednego z pierwszych, największego funduszu ETF na świecie, amerykańskiego Spidera. W Europie fundusze ETF funkcjonują zgodnie z określonym reżimem regulacyjnym. No i ten reżim wynika, jak pani prezes wspomniała, z Europejskiej Dyrektywy o Funduszach Inwestycyjnych, czyli dyrektywy UCITS. Ten reżim sprawia, że ETF-y w Europie bardzo się rozwinęły, mają mnóstwo zalet, są bardzo popularne na całym świecie, również jako ETF-y europejskie posiadające ten taki znak jakości europejskiej UCITS ETF. Zapewniają nam szeroko idące bezpieczeństwo inwestorów, zasady funkcjonowania depozytariusza, wydzielenia aktywów, są łatwo dostępnymi, tradycyjnie niedrogimi produktami. I to, jak funkcjonują, jest zharmonizowane na poziomie tworzenia, obrotu, dystrybucji tych instrumentów. Te zalety jednolitego reżimu europejskiego są tak dla ETF-ów trochę żaglem, ale trochę i garbem, bo mają jednolity reżim europejski, wprowadza też pewne ograniczenia. Otóż z uwagi na wprost wyrażone zakazy w dyrektywie UCITS, czyli zakaz inwestowania przez fundusze inwestycyjne w metale szlachetne, albo z uwagi na wymogi dotyczące dywersyfikacji portfela funduszu inwestycyjnego, nie możemy w Europie jako fundusz inwestycyjny, a ETF w szczególności, inwestować bezpośrednio w surowce czy indeksy towarowe. W praktyce więc europejskie ETF-y, nie mamy w Europie ETF-ów na złoto, a te ETF-y na złoto to tak naprawdę ETF-y na spółki wydobywcze, a to, jak wiemy, zupełnie inna ekspozycja. W praktyce europejskie ETF-y funkcjonują więc jako instrumenty oferujące ekspozycję na akcje bądź obligacje. No i takie rzecz jasna, ETF-y mamy również w ofercie na polskiej giełdzie, gdzie szereg tych instrumentów oferuje ekspozycję na akcje polskie, akcje zagraniczne, zarówno zabezpieczone walutowo, jak i nie, oraz od nie tak dawna w sumie również i na koszyk polskich obligacji. Taka sytuacja wraz z rozwojem inwestowania pasywnego ujawniła jednak dość jasną lukę. No, brakuje nam instrumentów na bardzo istotne klasy aktywów, towary, kruszce i temu podobne. Odpowiedzią na tę potrzebę było wykształcenie instrumentów ETC i ETN, czyli Exchange Traded Commodities i Exchange Traded Notes, które obecnie w Unii Europejskiej funkcjonują jak ETF-y, ale z punktu widzenia formalno-regulacyjnego są instrumentami dłużnymi, często charakteryzowanymi jako obligacje. I jak zobaczymy sobie na różnych rynkach, często mają taki dopisek non-UCITS. Z uwagi na to, że działają bardzo podobnie do ETF-ów, często widzimy na różnych giełdach, i takie samo jest też podejście naszej giełdy, taki segment ETP, Exchange Traded Products, gdzie mamy ETF-y na akcje, obligacje, ETC na indeksy towarowe oraz ETN na pozostałe instrumenty. Najważniejsze cechy tych produktów ETC i ETN to przede wszystkim i to, co łączy je z ETF-ami. Pasywny charakter instrumentu. No one podążają za indeksem towarowym najczęściej 1 do 1, tak przynajmniej jeśli chodzi o ETC. Fizyczne wydzielenie aktywów instrumentu od aktywów emitenta. I to jest kluczowa sprawa z perspektywy bezpieczeństwa inwestorów i najważniejsza tak naprawdę, która odróżnia te instrumenty od innych produktów, na przykład strukturyzowanych, oferujących ciekawą, podobną ekspozycję i upodabnia do ETF-ów. Czyli istnieje taki quasi-depozytariusz. Zazwyczaj produkty te zabezpieczone są fizycznie, no mają też otwarty charakter. Często kontrakty terminowe, to są terminowe instrumenty strukturyzowane, nie zawsze, ale często też są na określony czas. Podobnie jak w ETF-ie, w instrumentach ETC czy ETN jest możliwość, i tak też ten instrument działa, codziennej kreacji, umarzania w miarę zapotrzebowania rynku, kreowania nowych jednostek czy certyfikatów. Co ważne z perspektywy obrotu i płynności, instrumenty te charakteryzują się udziałem obowiązkowym w zasadzie animatora rynku. Tak też będą na giełdzie papierów wartościowych wyglądały. Przygotowałem dla Państwa swoiste porównanie jak takich podstawowych cech charakterystycznych ETF-ów, ETC czy też ETN. Tutaj jasno widać, które z tych instrumentów funkcjonują jako fundusz inwestycyjny oparty na reżimie dyrektywy UCITS. i w co mogą inwestować. Najczęściej ETF-y oczywiście w akcje, również obligacje. ETC to indeksy towarowe, a w Unii Europejskiej Exchange Traded Notes to w zasadzie wszelkie inne instrumenty bazowe. Tu warto powiedzieć, że te instrumenty miały różną definicję i na różnych rynkach funkcjonują w określony sposób. W Unii Europejskiej najczęściej będąc instrumentami giełdowymi tak działają i tego się tutaj trzymamy. Co ważne, najczęściej we wszystkie te instrumenty mogą inwestować tradycyjne fundusze inwestycyjne. To jest taka dodatkowa informacja, którą często widzimy UCITS eligible, czyli jest to instrument, który zwykły fundusz inwestycyjny UCITS, który nie może kupić złota, może kupić na przykład ETC na złoto. Instrumenty ETC są bardzo popularne już od dłuższego czasu na największych giełdach europejskich i nie tylko. Sporo ich jest obecnych w tym segmencie ETP, o którym wspomniałem, na SIX, na Xetrze, na różnych rynkach grupy Euronext czy na London Stock Exchange. Czasem spotykamy drobne niuanse definicyjne, że te instrumenty na niektórych rynkach nieco inaczej się nazywają, szczególnie w grupie Euronext to można spotkać. Nie ma to zasadniczego znaczenia, funkcjonują w podobny sposób, oferowane są na podstawie prospektów emisyjnych, a ich emitenci spełniają wymogi regulacyjne. Najczęściej te instrumenty, jeśli chodzi o indeksy towarowe, emitowane są na prawie irlandzkim, a inne instrumenty, na przykład kryptoaktywa, które są aktywem bazowym dla ETN-ów, bardzo często emitowane są w Niemczech. To prowadzi nas do tego, jak rozumiemy ETC czy ETC na giełdzie papierów wartościowych. Kluczowa sprawa to u nas zawsze będą to papiery wartościowe. Ponieważ istnieją te niuanse definicyjne i na tym poziomie nie jest to instrument zharmonizowany, zdecydowaliśmy się jednoznacznie to rozstrzygnąć i przeciąć tę dyskusję, żebyście Państwo mieli jasność, czym ten instrument jest i czym zawsze na GPW będzie. Odwołaliśmy się więc do jedynie istniejącej unijnej definicji tych instrumentów, która jest w tak zwanym RTS-ie drugim do MiFID-u. W każdym razie zawsze będzie to instrument dłużny, ale wyłączamy go z kategorii obligacji czy instrumentów strukturyzowanych, no bo obligacje są rzecz jasna w inny sposób notowane. Jest on emitowany w zamian za bezpośrednią inwestycję emitenta w aktywa bazowe, którymi są towary lub derywaty towarowe. No w przypadku niektórych surowców to trudno, żeby te towary były bezpośrednio przechowywane. No i cena pasywnie podąża za danym indeksem. Także zawsze instrument pasywny, zawsze wydzielone aktywa emitenta, zawsze fizycznie zabezpieczone. I to jest niezależnie od tego, jaką definicję Państwo spotkacie w literaturze czy na innych rynkach, rozstrzygnęliśmy te problemy i tak te instrumenty na giełdzie papierów wartościowych będą funkcjonować. Co ważne, ponieważ to nie jest instrument zharmonizowany i nie mamy za sobą reżimu UCITS, który zapewnia bardzo daleko idącą ochronę inwestorów, gdzie zasady, jak działa depozytariusz, jak są wydzielone aktywa, są określone przez długoletnią tradycję i regulacje unijne, no należało znaleźć rozwiązanie, żeby zapewnić bezpieczeństwo inwestorów. I inspirując się regulacjami innych giełd, zaproponowaliśmy rozwiązanie autorskie. Więc często emitenci ETC funkcjonują jako tak zwane spółki specjalnego przeznaczenia, no bo to nie jest kluczowa, nie są kluczowe aktywa emitenta, ale kluczowe jest to fizyczne, pasywne zabezpieczenie, żeby tam były te sztabki w zamian za mój instrument. A mimo wszystko na giełdzie papierów wartościowych każdy emitent musi spełnić standardowe wymogi regulaminowe dotyczące dopuszczenia instrumentu do obrotu. Oprócz tego nałożyliśmy wymóg udostępnienia dodatkowych informacji, które z naszej perspektywy są dla inwestorów kluczowe. No, czyli ten musi powiedzieć dodatkowo o tym, jakie stosuje mechanizmy w celu fizycznego wydzielenia aktywów, w celu powiązania ceny z instrumentem bazowym i w celu takim, aby środki z emisji były przeznaczone wyłącznie na zakup aktywów, a nie na nic innego, co emitent robi. To jest naszym zdaniem kluczowe z perspektywy państwa bezpieczeństwa jako inwestorów. Dodatkowo prosimy o informację, czy jest jakiś zewnętrzny podmiot, rodzaj audytora, który funkcjonowanie tych mechanizmów weryfikuje. Tutaj krótki schemat, który pozwoli lepiej zrozumieć obrót tym instrumentem, ale też pokazać, że zasadniczo działa to bardzo podobnie do ETF-u. Jeśli jako inwestor kupię ETC, na przykład ETC na złoto, korzystam oczywiście z pośrednictwa biura maklerskiego, kupując go na naszej giełdzie, obrót jest wspierany przez animatora rynku, który dba o to, żeby zawsze był instrument kwotowany i żeby spready były odpowiednie. Z drugiej strony, o czym opowiedzą przedstawiciele emitenta, aktywo bazowe, czyli złoto, przechowywane jest przez depozytariusza, w przypadku dzisiejszego instrumentu brytyjską mennicę państwową, a dopiero po zakupie instrumentu bazowego emitent może wyemitować certyfikat, czyli te obligacje, instrument ETC. Zasady obrotu. Bardzo podobnie do ETF-ów, a w zasadzie tak samo. Na naszej giełdzie mamy te same wymogi regulaminowe dla ETC, które stosujemy dla ETF-ów, czyli zawsze animator rynku, minimalna obecność 80%, tak naprawdę animator jest w arkuszu praktycznie przez cały czas, minimalna kwota to 100 000 złotych i maksymalny spread to 2%. To są takie maksymalne spready regulaminowe, na giełdach zagranicznych też maksymalne spready są odpowiednio wyższe. Rzecz jasna, w miarę obrotu oczekujemy sporo niższych spreadów, podobnie jak w przypadku naszych ETF-ów, te spready są dużo niższe. No i instrument jest notowany, tak jak akcje czy ETF-y, w systemie notowych ciągłych, na takich samych zasadach. Kilka słów podsumowania. Bardzo się cieszymy, że mamy dla Państwa nowy instrument, który jest instrumentem dłużnym, nie jest ETF-em, nie mamy ETF-ów na złoto, ale w obrocie tak naprawdę funkcjonuje tak jak ETF-y. Zapewnia nam ekspozycję na indeksy surowcowe, towarowe, metale szlachetne i podobne klasy aktywów. Jest to instrument wysokopłynny, a obecność animatora rynku zawsze to będzie gwarantować. Szeroka ekspozycja. Tutaj dzisiaj debiutuje ETC, Exchange Traded Commodities. Mamy też Exchange Traded Notes, to jest kwestia zasadniczo definicyjna, bo te instrumenty funkcjonują podobnie. ETN daje nam możliwość ekspozycji na inne klasy aktywów niż indeksy towarowe. No i warto mieć na uwadze, że te instrumenty znakomicie uzupełniają pasywny portfel inwestycyjny o klasy aktywów, które do tej pory nie były dostępne. Można więc łatwo z tych instrumentów, które wcześniej pokazałem i które Państwo znacie, w połączeniu z nowym ETC taki portfel na giełdzie papierów wartościowych sobie zbudować, do czego zapraszam. Bardzo dziękuję. Z wielką przyjemnością odpowiem na Państwa pytania. Zanim to jednak, i mam nadzieję, że trudne pytania Państwo przygotowaliście, zanim to jednak nastąpi, poprosimy o prezentację przedstawicieli emitenta. Najpierw Nick Pieńkowski opowie o HANetf, a potem Andrzej Wojna o instrumencie jako takim. Z uwagi na hybrydowy i językowo charakter dzisiejszego wydarzenia, prezentacje przedstawicieli emitenta będą w języku angielskim. Potem na sesję Q&A wrócimy do języka polskiego albo jakiejkolwiek innej formy zadawania pytań, jaka będzie dla Państwa najbardziej odpowiednia. So Nick, I just introduced you. It's time for your speech. The floor is yours.
Dzień dobry. Thank you for attending today this historic event at the Warsaw Stock Exchange. My name is Mikołaj Bienkowski. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of HANetf. Before I briefly introduce HANetf and discuss the benefits of ETFs and ETCs, I'd like to explain why I'm very proud to be in Warsaw today at the historic event of listing gold-backed securities on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. Unfortunately, I don't speak any Polish. However, as you can guess from my surname, Bienkowski, my father was Polish, and he was born and raised in Warsaw. He was a teenager during the war. However, he was still old enough to fight in the Warsaw Uprising, of which after the war, he then immigrated to England and then Canada, like many other polls did back then. Every few years, I travel with my family and my children to visit Warsaw to continue the history and give them the education of where my father came from. And often we have a Christmas dinner or Easter lunch at the Polish Club in Kensington in London, which is located in Knightsbridge. But when my father moved to London when he was 19 years old, back in 1945, he pronounced Knightsbridge as Knitsbrigge, because that's how he thought it was. It looked like it was spelt. The other thing worth noting from my past history is that myself and a former colleague, we were responsible for creating the world's first gold ETF. And that happened in Australia over 20 years ago in March 2003. And it was called Gold Bullion Securities. 5 or 6 months after we launched that gold ETF in Australia, I came to London for a couple of weeks to help list a gold ETC on the London Stock Exchange. And that occurred in December 2003. It's almost 20 years ago. And because of that gold ETC that I initially came to London for a few weeks to help list, I actually never left London. And since then, I've helped build 3 ETF companies. So the gold ETC has had a very important and strong relationship with my history. Since listing that gold ETC in London 20 years ago, along with HANetf, I've also helped co-found ETF Securities and then WisdomTree Europe, 2 other large, diversified global ETF issuers. Now, gold ETCs are listed on many stock exchanges in Europe and around the world, but HANetf is proud to be listing Poland's first ETC and gold ETC on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. The ETC is backed by the Royal Mint of Britain, with physical gold bars held at the Royal Mint's vault, in which we believe this makes this gold ETC the most secure, or one of the most secure gold ETCs in the world. Gold was the first commodity ETC 20 years ago. It was very simple. If you think about commodities, gold bars that don't decay, very easy to buy the gold bars, put in a vault and issue securities. However, since that gold ETC first listed and the ETC structure was created, many other commodities have come to market using the ETC structure, including oil, commodity baskets, energy, agriculture, and even other products outside commodities, which we still call ETCs today, which involve cryptocurrencies, which is also ETC, and also currencies like FX and even carbon. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of HANetf. HANetf is Europe's first and only independent white label ETF provider. This means that HANetf was launched to help banks, asset managers, pension funds, and even companies like the Royal Mint sponsor and bring ETFs and ETCs to Europe's stock exchanges. And where those organisations may not have the experience or the time to build the ETCs themselves, they will use the HANetf platform and work with HANetf where we will build, operate, manage, and distribute, and then list around Europe those ETFs and ETCs on their behalf. HANetf has a long history in the ETF market. Although HANetf's only been around for 6 years, myself and my co-founder, my CIO, for example, have been around since the infancy of ETFs and ETCs in Europe, since 2003 and even before that, when the market was around $50 billion in Europe. And today, the ETF and ETC market in Europe is over $1 trillion, with 50 or 100 issuers. Even our shareholders are steeped in the ETF history and the ETF market, with one of our shareholders being the the old CEO of BGI iShares, which is now obviously BlackRock. And even one of our other shareholders has a Polish ETF issuer, BetaShares, which is Roy Redzew, I believe is the chairman of BetaShares. As I mentioned, HANetf started 6 years ago, although we listed our first product in 2018. Currently, HANetf has around 40 ETFs and ETCs, covering off various thematic equities, such as gold mining, cloud computing, uranium mining, clean energy, solar, and also various commodity ETCs, such as gold, carbon allowances, as well as some crypto ETCs, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'd like to thank the Warsaw Stock Exchange for supporting HANetf to list Poland's first gold ETC. This is HANetf's first listing in Poland, and we hope to build a strong relationship here in Poland with both the Warsaw Stock Exchange and also the investment community. Although anyone can buy an ETF and an ETC anywhere in the world once it has one listing, by listing on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, this makes the trading of ETFs and ETCs cheaper and even more simple to buy, own, and sell for Polish investors, particularly because it is denominated in Polish złoty. Although ETFs and ETCs have existed in Europe for around 20 years, they're still relatively unknown. And across Europe, I believe it's said that they have about 10% penetration investment portfolios. So there's still a lot more room to grow. However, they've been growing year on year for the last 20 years at over 20% per annum, while the mutual funds industry has started to grow a little bit slower. Many mutual fund providers are now also looking to add ETFs to their portfolio, either by issuing ETFs with HANetf or on their own, sometimes converting mutual funds to ETFs, or even adding an ETF share class to existing mutual funds. Many people think ETFs are a new asset class, but all they are is a wrapper. They wrap existing investment products, whether it's equities, the WIG20, gold, and they bring it to make it tradable on the stock exchange. So therefore, they bring the benefits of ETFs, of mutual funds or stocks into one package and combine those benefits. Benefits of ETFs: they are liquid and easy to trade. ETFs and ETCs can now be traded in ordinary brokerage accounts, including Polish brokerage accounts in złoty. ETFs are liquid as the underlying. Although sometimes it may look like the trading is low on a stock exchange, this does not mean an ETF has low liquidity. An ETF is backed by the liquidity of the assets underlying that ETF. In the case of the Royal Mint, responsibly sourced gold ETC, it's backed by allocated London good delivery bars, and gold trades over $20 billion a day. So whether or not the exchange looks like it has a lot of trading, it's backed by the gold market. And this can be seen to issue new units in an ETC. An intermediary, a bank that we work with, will deliver gold to the vault. And once we receive that gold in the vault, we issue the ETC units. So therefore, it's obvious that the liquidity of an ETC or an ETF is equal to or very close to the liquidity of the underlyings. ETFs and ETCs offer different strategies covering different and every other asset class. They started off covering equities. I think the S&P 500 and the TSX 60 were some of the first products that existed way back in 93. I mean, the European market started around 99, 2000. But now they cover bonds, commodities, alternatives, cryptocurrencies, carbon, short and leverage products, all sorts of different strategies. So now an ordinary investor can construct a diversified portfolio in as little as even 1 or 10 ETFs and ETCs. When you buy an ETF, although you're buying one, you could be buying one share for $20 or 100 zloty or 50 zloty, you're effectively trading 10 or 100 or 1,000 stocks all at once. So when you buy a share in the WIG20 ETF, you're effectively buying a share in 20 different Polish companies. Or if it's the S&P 500, I think it's 497 or 496 today, you're buying a share in 496 companies. So it's very simple and easy to trade an ETF and an ETC, and obviously very cheap. For yourself to replicate that, yourself to trade 20 or 50 or hundreds of stocks will be very expensive and very complex. And as a result, ETFs are very cost effective. It's cheaper to trade than all the underlying, and generally ETFs are known to have very small management fees. And ETFs also include many other features that other investment products have, whether it's exposure to different asset classes, depending on the market and the local regulations. They can be shorted, you can borrow on margin, you can use them for lending. They pay dividends. My mother used to tell me she was scared of buying ETFs because she thought they didn't pay dividends. She was told by her broker in Australia, they don't pay dividends. Well, they own the companies that pay the dividends. Those companies pay dividends to the ETF, and that ETF either reinvests the dividends or it can pay out the dividend as a coupon to the shareholders. So they do pay dividends, as well as all the benefits of ETFs, which Martian explained before. The difference between an ETF and an ETC and an ETN, they're all very similar, albeit an ETF is diversified and has specific regulations, and an ETC doesn't have to abide by the UCITS regulations and therefore does not necessarily have to be diversified. So we can own gold bars, but obviously gold on its own is not diversified, it's a single asset. So ETCs are obviously the main benefit of bringing ETCs is that you're able to now invest via a brokerage account and trade on the stock exchange things that were inaccessible before, whether it be oil, gold, currencies, crypto, carbon, etc. So there's the ETC structure 20 years ago brought great benefit to underlying investors for people to get diversified exposure to different asset classes that were traditionally, until the early 2000s, only available to institutional asset managers. And back then, 20 years ago, if you had a brokerage account at all, you would perhaps buy some stocks and some bonds, a traditional portfolio. But obviously with the changing and dynamic correlations, it's obviously very key to have access to different asset classes depending on the different markets. Gold ETCs are also cheap and easy to own and safe. Gold ETCs bring the institutional gold market to local investors, making it simple to buy gold now via your own brokerage account. The spreads on stock exchange will be tight. As I mentioned before, gold's very liquid. The liquidity of the ETC will be matched by the underlying market, so therefore the spreads on the stock exchange should be tight. And if you went to go and buy gold bars on your own, because the gold bars have to be fabricated specifically, and when you buy a small gold bar, a lot of effort goes into making a small gold bar as opposed to the amount of effort going in to make a bigger gold bar. So if you were to buy your own small gold bar that could be worth $10,000, for example, or 50,000 zloty, still not going to be a very big bar. It could cost 2, 3, 4, 5, 10% for a small bar just to make that gold bar. So therefore, you've already paid 10% entry into buying your small gold bar. And then where do you keep your gold bar? Do you put it in a safety deposit box at the bank, which you have to pay for? Do you insure it? Do you put it in your suit jacket that you don't wear and then forget where you've hidden it? So there's lots of difficulties around buying physical gold bars, not just the storage insurance, but just the cost. Obviously, the ETC takes all those complexities away. And the other benefit of ETCs, and specifically gold ETCs, is that they're not correlated to equities. Some investors used to buy gold mining companies to get exposure to gold. But gold mining companies are correlated to equities as well as gold, whereas the gold ETC is 100% correlated to gold. And often in times of stress, when the markets are, obviously markets can be volatile, but when markets are often crashing, gold often holds its value. So it can be negatively correlated to equities, which is one of the reasons that investors often like to own gold in their portfolio. One, it's a physical asset, but two, it can often maintain its value in times of stress. I think the success of gold ETCs is evidence of all the benefits and uses that gold ETCs have. As a result, and since the first listing of a gold ETF in Australia and then London 20 years ago, gold ETCs and ETFs around the world have $200 billion worth of gold sitting in vaults backing those gold ETFs. I'd now like to introduce my colleague, Andrzej Wojna, who is head of the DAC region and head of Poland for HANetf. Dziękuję bardzo.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us guests here. Again, also from me, a big thank you to Warsaw Stock Exchange, Isabella, for having us here, and the whole team, Marcin, Bogdan, Hannah, Greg, behind the work that went into making this possible today has started already 2-3 years ago. So I've seen it happen behind the scenes. It's been a very long process, and it's been fantastic support from the whole team at Warsaw Stock Exchange. So really happy and excited to finally get the listing ready and start engaging more with the Polish investors. And we've already had some actually very positive and constructive feedback over the years from different investors that we spoke with. So today I want to give you a quick overview of why we decided to bring this gold ETC to market here. I also prepared not just product-specific slides to explain the product. Of course, that is one of the core aspects of the presentation, so you can understand a bit the benefits for investors in Poland of this particular gold ETC. But I also brought a couple of charts to show why gold is actually a very exciting topic at the moment. And from all I heard so far, the feedback we got from you and other investors is that in Poland, gold is actually very popular already. So private investors really hold, it's one of the favorite asset classes, and probably rightly so, because we are currently going through a very different time, which we haven't seen in the last 15 years. Those of you who follow financial markets know that interest rates have gone up for the first time in 15 years since the financial crisis. And that has led to all kind of dislocations and new dynamics in the markets. And gold is normally a great asset class to have when times are uncertain. So, to the question, why gold, actually, what's so interesting about it, and why we decided to make gold the first product of hopefully many to come on the Polish Stock Exchange, on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, one of them is the safe haven characteristic. So investors like to have gold because in tough times, especially when equity markets are maybe not performing very well, adding gold to your portfolio can have an effect to counterweight, to counterbalance your equity exposure. Gold is often not strongly correlated with other asset classes. So as you can see, for example, in the Great Recession or the financial crisis in 2008 and several other scenarios, whenever gold equity markets, as represented here by the FTSE in the UK, went down, gold had usually a very positive and strong time. So it balanced out your portfolio. And I think in these times, it could be, again, a very interesting idea to look at gold. This is another chart that's some of you might know already. It's a very popular or very famous depiction of a balance sheet of central banks worldwide. And as we all know, since 2008, there's been a huge expansion of money supply worldwide. And gold, but in contrast to that, gold cannot be multiplied as you like. A central bank can start printing money, but gold has to be taken out of the earth, so it's a very slow process. And that's why some people really like gold, because they say if money supply is getting higher, 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 and gold stays stable, the only mechanism to balance that is by the gold price going up, because your supply is the same as before, there's much more fiat money, so gold should, in theory, go up. And again, this is one of the key arguments why investors in the markets that we normally speak to like gold. And I'm very curious to see if Polish investors think the same. And we will have several meetings, I think, in the next 2 days, and hopefully we'll get to debate with some of you these points in more detail. And finally, just before going into the product itself, here's one more very interesting chart which our analysts looked at recently. These are interest rates. So, for me, I've been in the markets for 15, 16 years. I just about experienced the financial crisis. I started my career back then in 2008, just in the middle of that cycle there. And these high interest rates that you see there was something that existed at the time, but then you had 10, 15 years of no interest rates, actually. And that now, for the first time, shortly before COVID, you have some interest rates, and now again you have high interest rates. So what did gold do during these times? Well, we looked at these cycles of ups and downs, and the conclusion is that gold did very well when the rates went up. That's often because there's inflation and there's fears of recession and things like that. But not only when rates went up, gold did also very well when the rates came down again. And I think this is the key message here, that we are almost at peak rates in many markets, in the US, in Europe. So investors are asking us often, what do you think? Do you think gold will still do well in the next couple of months or a year ahead? Because interest rates have already happened. Inflation is already priced in. What do you think? We can't predict the future, but if history is any guide to that, it seems that also when rates come down again, gold did, at least in the last two rate hiking cycles, have positive returns as well. So we think from the current level where we are at around $1,900, $1,930 per ounce, we still think there's upside, and that's why I think a lot of investors are looking at gold at the moment. So that's it about the market behind gold. Now going a little bit back to the product itself and that we listed today here, I wanted to introduce you also to the other gentleman, not Nick. Nick, you already met our founder. The other gentleman with a bit less hair is my boss, Hector McNeil. They are co-founders. They've been working together for 20 years. As Nick said, they invented the first gold ETC worldwide, back then in Australia and then later in Europe. So they, even though we are a young company as HANetf, 5 years in the market, 6 years since the foundation, there's a lot of experience when it comes to gold within the company. So our founders are very experienced there. That's why we also wanted at HANetf to create another gold product. But the question was, what can we offer to investors that doesn't exist yet? Because as some of you may know, there are other gold products in the market. There's iShares, there's Invesco, there's Amundi, Deutsche Bank, big names, big brand names. So what can we do better? And as Nick said, we are a white label company. That means we always partner with experts, other companies, asset managers. So what we did is we found a partner, or they found us actually 3 years ago, called the Royal Mint. The Royal Mint is the British sovereign mint. So their day-to-day job is to print gold bars, gold coins. They also print the coins for actual payment in the UK and in other countries. So the pound coins and the cents are produced by them. This one is the Britannia. This is a famous collector or investment coin. It's made of gold, 999 carat. So they had a very big precious metals business, but they had no financial instrument. So they came to us and said, hey, you offer white label services. Could you build for us a gold ETC? We would like to offer investors a liquid, exchange-traded gold product. And that's when we had a moment of clarity, and we said, that might make sense. There's an added value. So what's the value? Why do people invest in gold, we said? Well, people invest, as I said before, often as a safe haven. So people take gold because they're afraid that maybe something is not going so well in their portfolio, in the economy, and they want to hedge themselves. So we said, if you then use a gold ETC, does it make sense to use a gold ETC from, I don't want to pick anyone out, iShares, Invesco. What they do, where is the gold stored for these gold ETCs? The gold is stored normally either with HSBC or with JP Morgan. These are the two big gold custodians of the world. Roughly 75% of all gold in these ETCs is stored with these two banks. Does it make sense to put your gold in a bank or to store it with a bank if what you want to protect yourself is from dislocation, like, for example, a financial crisis? We saw that even big companies like a Lehman Brothers can go bankrupt. So if you then have your gold with one of these guys to protect yourself from that, and suddenly you can't access it anymore because there's bankruptcy procedures or whatever, maybe that doesn't make so much sense. I'm not saying that the gold is gone. It's segregated, I know. And the custodians have separate businesses. It's more about the, is it necessary then to go through through the trouble to get your gold? We are storing our gold with the Royal Mint. The Royal Mint is part of the Treasury in the UK, so it's government-backed. It has a AA rating. The gold location is not in London, it's outside, it's in Wales. The site was protected in the past by the defense forces of the UK, so by the military. So it was highly secure and outside of the banking system. That was the important part. So what you get, or what Polish investors will get when they invest in this, is they will diversify their risk away from the traditional banking sector. So even though you invest in a financial instrument, which, yes, it is issued by a financial company like ours, the structure itself is completely ring-fenced. It's not dependent on HANetf, of ours. So even if we don't exist anymore, your gold will still be there, the money will still be there, and it's not in the banking system, not in the traditional banking system. So that was the original proposition that we came to market with 3.5 years ago. And that's, I think, also one of the main added values that we would like to bring to Polish investors. However, we have evolved a bit further over the last couple of years, and I'll come to that. Here's just a quick overview of the 4 key characteristics of what a gold ETC should do. So if you are looking in the market and say, yes, I would like to invest in gold, and ask yourself, what should I pay attention to? How should I select a suitable gold product? In our view, this is a rough guide, the 4 key characteristics. First of all, make sure it's a physically backed product. If you want to have gold, it should be physical. Most products do that. We do that as well. I just explained the storage is outside the financial system. That's one of our added values. Operational quality, make sure it's a tried and tested structure. the ETC here, it is the case. As I said, our founders have invented this structure, so we believe we can offer you the highest standards in the market through this product. Liquidity is very important, so you can go in and out at low spreads, so you don't pay a lot of money and don't lose money on trading the product. This is the case. Here in Poland, we will have Santander making markets on the Polish Stock Exchange, and outside, away from just the exchange here in Poland, we work with a broad range of market makers, many of the big names that you would usually encounter, so we can guarantee a very highly liquid market all around, and for all sizes, whether you want to invest 100 zloty or 1 million. The market for these ETCs is very sophisticated and we can basically not guarantee, but we can promise you a high liquidity at any time of the day normally. And then the custody, I just mentioned that's the one key aspect that where we are different than the traditional iShares or Invescos or Deutsche Banks of this world. Now beyond that, as I said, we actually evolved a bit further. So there was one other aspect which makes us stand out versus other products. And this is sustainability or ESG. Now I know it might not affect everyone. Not everyone will be interested in this. However, we are seeing a trend that more and more investors are asking us, particularly in Europe. They say, what do you do anything sustainable? Anything that helps make your product more sustainable? Why is that important? Well, because gold is a commodity. And as a commodity, you have to dig it out of the ground. Any one of you who has seen pictures of a gold mine, these are huge operations. If you dig a gold mine, it takes 5 to 10 years to build the mine. It's normally somewhere in protected areas, in rainforests or other where you have indigenous people living there. There's plants, animals being dislocated. So this is an issue for some people. And the world is coming more and more to the realization that we should try to be as sustainable as possible when we get that gold out of the ground. And so we said, okay, if investors are asking us for a solution there, and they ask us, what do you do? We sat down with the Royal Mint and we said, what could we design some kind of mechanism to be a bit better there? And we found two particular aspects that we adjusted over the last 1.5 years. The first one was we are using something called the LBMA Responsible Gold Sourcing Standard. This is a standard that was not developed by us. It's the London Bullion Market Association. It's the biggest gold association in the world. They're basically fixing the price for gold every day. There's a morning and an afternoon mechanism where they set the price of gold in London in physical trading. It's extremely liquid, so many people use them as a reference for the gold price to determine the price. So they came up with a standard already in 2012 where they monitor when the gold comes from the mine all the way to the refiner and then to the end product, to the bar. They make sure that there's no child labor involved in the process. They make sure there's no terrorism financing. So all these things, there's a whole 40-page catalog that these mines and refiners have to fulfill. They have to approve. They have to confirm that they abide by these standards. They get audited. So we make sure that 100% of our gold comes from this process. So every bar that is in our vault went through this responsible sourcing process. And not just the original one from 2012, but the latest one from 2019, because the standard has been revised and improved over the years. And last year, we made sure to switch all our old bars into gold bars that have been produced in 2019 or later, in order to give investors the certainty that you have as responsible as possible gold in this ETC. And finally, the maybe most interesting and unique aspect that we introduced last year in March was to use recycled gold bars. This is not 100%. It's at the moment at 35%. So roughly a third of the gold in the ETC comes from recycled gold. And this idea was actually not designed just by ourselves, but we did it in cooperation with one of our larger investors, a private bank which operates across Europe. The CIO team came up with they said, we are a sustainable bank. Our investors want to be sustainable, but we also have a large gold allocation. We have a 10% allocation to gold. So how can we combine these two? And then the research team came up with a methodology, and they said, we believe that recycled gold is the best way forward. You reduce your CO2 footprint by 95% if you use recycled gold. So they worked with us on that, and the Royal Mint, because they have this whole operation of trading in gold every day for their gold bars, gold coins, they were able to offer a mechanism where they use gold, which comes from recycled sources, melts new recycled bars, certifies them, so we can document the life cycle of the bar, where the gold comes from. That's very important. So you can show, yes, this is really recycled gold, 100%. And then every month we take some of the original bars out, which are new gold, and replace them with this recycled gold. So this is a mechanism that's been fairly new. It's been very well received so far by investors. A lot of questions. Many people want to understand how it works. So again, I'm very keen, or we are very interested to hear the feedback from Polish investors. If any of you have any questions about that or feedback for us, please grab us later for coffee or something, and we can discuss it in more detail. So that's really the key aspects of what make this product different, and hopefully more added value to Polish investors. Beyond that, here's just a little illustration that I mentioned before, why we use recycled gold. The statistics, I'm not going to dwell too much on it. 95% reduction in CO2 footprint. If that's something that you care about, again, we can provide you with further information. That's, again, on the next slides, just have a couple of more detailed points to highlight what we're doing to give you transparency, because as Nick said before, why would you trade gold in an ETP or ETC? Because it's simple, it's liquid, it's transparent, and it's cost-effective. So this one here highlights the point of transparency. How do we give you transparency? Because maybe you want to know, well, do you actually have the gold bar there? Is the gold, can I check that you have the gold bars? It's nice that you give me your word that you have gold in your vault, but how do I know that you really have it there? That's the most important part, right? So what we do is we publish a list of all the gold bars in our vault on our webpage. You can look it up every day. It's anytime there's a change in the composition of the gold in our vault, we update this. There's a lot of details in there. The print number of the bar, there's a registration number, who produced the bar, in which year was it produced, what's the weight, what's the finesse. So a lot of unique identifiers so you can clearly see the gold bars. Now you might say, well, that's nice, but again, it's your word. What if this is not accurate? I still have to believe you, HANetf. We do one other thing. We do twice a year. We have an independent audit. So we have a specialist going into the vault, and they check the bars. They weigh them. They make sure that it's actually there. And then they send a certificate twice a year that we also publish on the webpage, which certifies that the gold is really there, as we say. So you don't have to take our word. There's a third party involved that you can consult. Liquidity, I already mentioned that. Not much more to say is that Santander is making the markets here on the Polish exchange. Gold ETCs are normally very liquid. They're tried and tested instruments. On other exchanges where we already have a history of trading, like for example Xetra in Germany or in London on the London Stock Exchange, you can expect spreads anywhere from 2 to 6 basis points for going in and out the product. This is very liquid. It's more liquid than many traditional equity ETFs. So we will see how the spreads evolve on the Warsaw Exchange. We will need some time to see how the history builds up, but we are confident that we will be able to provide a good price for investors to efficiently go in and out. And that's it, really. So these are just some base facts, the ISIN and the product structure. Again, thanks very much to Warsaw Stock Exchange for the kind reception, for organizing the event today, and very happy that it finally worked out that we can now fully engage with Polish investors. And if you have questions, please, I think we have a Q&A now, or afterwards for coffee. Feel free to grab us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick and Andrzej. Super insightful presentations. Szanowni Państwo, teraz czas na zadawanie pytań. Z uwagi na pewne ograniczenia językowe i na to, żeby nasi goście mogli również zrozumieć Państwa pytania. Jeśli pytania są zadawane do nich lub dotyczą produktu, a to nie będzie dla Państwa nadmiernym obciążeniem, będziemy wdzięczni, jeśli zapytacie Państwo bezpośrednio po angielsku. Jeśli to wyzwanie, to ja postaram się w miarę skromnych umiejętności językowych to pytanie przetłumaczyć i przekazać. Jeśli pytania są do przedstawicieli giełdy, to jak najbardziej bardzo chętnie opowiemy po polsku. Dla tych z Państwa, którzy oglądają nas online, pytania przyjmiemy z uwagi na ograniczenia techniczne przede wszystkim z sali, ale proszę wysłać nam pytania na standardowy adres mailowy dostępny na stronie giełdy. Na pewno wszystkie do nas dotrą, na wszystkie postaramy się odpowiedzieć. Bardzo proszę. Jeśli nie ma żadnych pytań, to ja mam jedno. So if there are no questions for now, I would like to ask you something. So followed your presentations, in particularly you, Andre. So here's gold, and because that's not an easy business to compete with Invesco's, iShares, and all others that in terms of pricing in particular. Yeah. So and you're currently offering gold. How about other commodities? Yeah, like silver, palladium, copper. We hear every now and then that we might have a little bit of a commodity super cycle now. Is this in your plans to offer other commodities wrapped up in ETCs? And how would you approach that?
Thank you, for the question. I will probably also afterwards pass it to Nick because, as I said, 20 years experience. Apologies. Probably the question will be very good for Nick as well because when he built ETF securities back in the days, he did not only launch gold ETCs, but I think you had 300 different commodity ETCs at ETF securities, the world's biggest actually issuer of commodity products. So you'll tell us what's in the pipeline. But yes, personally, my personal opinion, I think you're right. Investor demand is there. Whenever we speak with investors, the next super cycle in commodities might be ahead of us. The green revolution, the transition from a standard economy to a green economy requires a lot of copper, lithium, manganese, all these products. So you have some of them already in existence, but I'm sure there's more innovation that you could bring and build. We have an ETC issuer. We have a gold ETC. Nothing that fundamentally is in the way of maybe launching silver, palladium, other precious metals. For that, we already have demand with sustainability and these things in mind. And I'm sure other strategies will follow at some point. It's a very exciting sector, the commodity sector. I agree. Anything to add, Nick?
Not much more to add other than, with the gold ETC, although we helped build Europe's first gold ETC 20 years ago, there are other gold ETCs that do trade around Europe. But the gold ETC here, HANetf is a white label provider, so generally a client will come to us for a sponsor and say, I would like to create this ETF or ETC because it fits my business. The gold ETC fits the Royal Mint's business, or they have a unique idea. In the case of platinum, palladium, silver, etc., these products do already exist in Europe, but when we are talking to other clients and the Royal Mint about bringing other products to the market, with the Royal Mint responsibly sourced gold ETC, clearly has a couple of different advantages that other gold ETCs don't have. One is that it's backed by the Royal Mint and backed by the Britain's Treasury and not custodied at a bank, which many other gold ETCs are. We obviously have the responsibly sourced gold program, so we have a couple of clear advantages of this gold ETC. But we're always looking at new products, and like you said, and I think Andre mentioned with the world changing to clean energy, etc., even silver, platinum, palladium are often used in catalytic converters and other parts of the clean energy infrastructure. So definitely looking at that space.
Thanks very much. It'd be interesting to watch how you add value to your next ETCs in a similar way you added that to a gold ETC product. Zapraszam. Mamy pytanie z widowni. Proszę bardzo, Artur.
Hello, Artur Wiśniewski, Stockbroker PL. I have a question. Why did you decide to get listed on Warsaw Stock Exchange? Is it just because Nick's Polish origins? Or maybe there are some other reasons why Warsaw Stock Exchange, not other exchanges? We have many in Europe. And what was the most difficult? Was it a simple way or difficult? What was most difficult and how did you manage to get over it? And the second question is, you said that ETC is 100% physically backed in gold. Is it possible to go to London on holiday, and withdraw my ETC, but not in the form of cash, but a gold bar?
First part of that question, why did we decide to list on the Warsaw Stock Exchange? I mean, ETFs and ETCs are meant to be easy to trade and accessible, and our products are listed on other exchanges around Europe. I'd say probably a few years ago, we had our products registered for sale in Poland. So we do occasionally visit Warsaw and talk about our products in the market. But as a leader in ETCs and gold ETCs, and also working with the Royal Mint on a unique product that has advantages that other gold ETCs don't have, and obviously gold is widely traded globally around the world in Asia, Europe, Poland, along with real estate, etc. Gold's always in demand. And Poland is an evolving market. It's growing. Obviously, other evolving markets are looking to bring more products to the market to make it easier for investors to trade and have portfolios. I mean, obviously, Beta Shares is here as well as a local provider. So the market is growing, and we want to be part of that. And there's a large population here, etc. And it's going to become more wealthy over time, etc. And you only need a small percentage, a half a percentage or even less of everyone's portfolio to be in gold, not the 2 to 10% that many private banks and other investors might hold in gold, etc. We only need a small percentage to make that very successful. So we think the success come overnight, not necessarily, but we think that success will come over time, and we're happy to be part of that. And having some Polish heritage is nice. And if my father was alive today, I hope he'd be very proud. Unfortunately, he's not around, but I'll let Martin answer in a second how easy it was to bring the product to market, because I know we worked tirelessly with the Warsaw Stock Exchange and Martin's colleagues to how to fit an ETC within the ETF listing rules, etc. And it's no different to what we went through 20 years ago when, well, even before that, ETFs didn't exist. They created ETF rules. Then what's an ETC? How does that fit within the market? Oh, we want it to look like an ETF, but it's not an ETF. We've worked with other exchanges in the past and creating ETC listing rules that look like ETFs but enable the listing and trading of new products on the stock exchange. So markets are always evolving. About the physical redemption, though, it is backed by physical gold, and yes, you can redeem for physical gold. You can't turn up to the vault yourself because it's obviously secure. We've even had one of our largest investors with, I think, 150 million plus or something. We do sometimes for the professional investment community a trip to the Royal Mint to look around. The Royal Mint produces coins for, I think, 100 countries around the world. They produce gold and silver, etc. They don't produce the notes anymore. That's outsourced to private companies, etc. There's obviously even if we had in the past I had a gold ETC with HSBC. They don't just let anyone turn up and have a look at the vault because that's a breach of security, etc. So they don't allow anyone to go to the vault, but they allow people to see the history and tour around the Royal Mint. I guess the redemption makes it feel like it's physically backed by gold, but I mean the intermediaries that help HANetf to create their product, they're delivering physical gold on a regular basis, and we're issuing gold ETC units. If there's excess selling in the market, they'll be buying the ETCs back off investors on the exchange and then delivering us the ETCs on a regular basis, and we'll give them the gold back. So it's happening on a regular basis. That's how ETFs work. You deliver the S&P 500 portfolio or the WIG 20 portfolio, you get ETF in exchange, and vice versa. We have had some clients redeem for physical gold, but it's not that simple because it can be done. Obviously, you've got a share or security in a brokerage account. You've got to go through the process of getting the KYC and going out through the admin, etc. But it can be done. But if you own 1,000 zloty or 10,000 zloty, etc., it's not going to be worth the time and the cost. There's a lot of people involved in the chain. But for people who own larger amounts of gold, it can be worthwhile for them to go through the process and deliver the gold. And we've had a few pension funds. One wanted delivery of gold. I think they took 20 million delivery, and a couple others did it just as a test. They said, well, you say you can give me the gold, we'll prove it. And they bought 10,000 or 100,000 or $1 million worth or whatever, took delivery of the gold and said, okay, the product works, now I'll buy some more. So we have had people do it. As a general retail investor, you're buying this product because it's easy to hold in a brokerage account or with your portfolio. You don't want to go through buying a little gold bar and putting it in your socks in the cupboard or having to insure it or go to the bank and put it in a box. That March, maybe you can explain a little bit more on how difficult it was to come around the rules.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for that. Does that answer the question? Czy ktoś jeszcze z Państwa zgromadzonych na sali chciałby zadać pytanie albo nam, albo przedstawicielom emitenta? Jeśli nie, to zapraszamy, jak wspomniałem, do zadawania pytań mailowo na standardowy adres dostępny na naszej stronie internetowej. Wszystkie maile do nas dotrą, na wszystkie postaramy się odpowiedzieć. Zapraszam teraz Panią Prezes do oficjalnego wręczenia dyplomu, a Nick and Andre, now is the official award ceremony, so please come on stage.
Dziękuję bardzo. Doszliśmy do takiego momentu dzisiejszej uroczystości, kiedy już tradycyjnie będziemy wręczali statuetkę i dyplom. I myślę, że będzie to taka właśnie, będą to takie upamiętniające statuetka i dyplom, przedmioty, które będą przypominały ten dzisiejszy dzień debiutu. So Nick, André, so we are at the moment when I would like to present to HANetf the statue of our bull, exchange bull, and also diploma, and I hope that both of them they will commemorate today's debut of your exchange traded commodity product. So now is the time for some photos. So please, Marcin, and I don't know who would like to have a photo here. So please come to the stage. To zapraszamy Państwa na już rozmowy w kuluarach, na kawę, herbatę i skromny poczęstunek. Dziękujemy bardzo.